Life and Explorations of David Livingston, Part 40. Mr. Stanley's dispatches to the Herald, as we have already seen, were sent through the London bureau of that office. The noted telegram, printed on the morning of July 2, 1872, of which a copy has been printed on the preceding pages, created a profound sensation, followed by other cable telegrams giving reports of the newspaper reporter's journey towards Europe and his reception at Paris and elsewhere. The intelligence was received with almost as much avidity as the news which came from day to day of the late Franco-German War, or that of the attempted revolution in Paris. But to some, the reports of Mr. Stanley's great successes were incredible. There were those who did not believe he had seen Livingston, and who did not believe his story of the meeting, with of course all the correspondence from Zanzibar, Unyanyembe, Ujiji, and elsewhere was but an adroitly devised romance. It's obviously a word that has disappeared from English. Adroitly devised romance, after the fashion of that of Ali Musa, to cover up inglorious failure. It is needless now to fully state the arguments upon which this incredulity was based. Perhaps newspaper jealousy had something to do with it. Certainly it was a matter of deep jargon to many Englishmen that the British government, upon whose soil the sun never sets, should have been totally eclipsed by the enterprise of private citizens of a rival nationality. Then there were certain little errors, chiefly misprints, and the excusable mistakes of telegraphing long dispatches great distances, which were claimed by the doubting as showing that the so-called great special search expedition of the Herald was but a magnificent hoax after all. Moreover, the universal interest manifested in the subject gave a splendid opportunity to adventurers, both male and female, to ventilate themselves and become public characters. Hence, those who had known Mr. Stanley as a native of Wales and not of Missouri, or of this or that or other country, who knew that he had not been a correspondent as had been generally stated, and in fine, who knew that many assertions in regard to him were untrue, these adventurers became even more numerous. Even then the celebrated cow of the crumpled horn, which originated the terrible conflagration of Chicago, and then, with miraculous self-multiplication, surpassed in number the cattle of 1,000 hills, and mournfully ruminating over her sad mishap in kicking over the kerosene lamp, became the observed of all observers in all Christian lands, and at the same instant of astronomical and clock time. It was needless to disguise the fact, however, that the statements of those incredulous of the search expedition's wonderful success, being of some time constantly iterated and reiterated through the press, had considerable effect upon the public mind, and actually left it for a period in a state of painful uncertainty in regard to the fate of the great explorer, the truth in regard to whom was earnestly desired by all intelligent persons throughout Christendom. Happily, the authenticity of Mr. Stanley's reports, and with it the recent safety of Dr. Livingston, have been placed beyond reasonable doubt by a mass of testimony against which no one can dispute who will not dispute against the sun. Much of the testimony has already appeared in this volume. Different portions of their appropriate places. These are: number 1, the statement of the Honorable E. Joy Morris, ex-minister of the United States at Constantinople. He abundantly establishes the character of Mr. Stanley as that of the most energetic, fearless, and honest man. The first two qualities greatly enabled him to achieve success in the search expedition. The last is a sure guarantee that, had he not won success, he would not have claimed it. Mr. Morris's statement is also of value because utterly disapproving for the ever putting to rest the certain tissue of misinterpreted representations in regard to Mr. Stanley's history in Asia Minor. Number 2, the letters of Dr. Livingston to Earl Granville, which were published by authority of the British government. In these letters, the African explorer not only gratefully alludes to Mr. Stanley, but expressly says his dispatches are entrusted to his care. Because of the great traveler's belief in Mr. Stanley's enterprise and capacity to accomplish whatever he might undertake. In one of these dispatches, Dr. Livingston also states that he had given to the custody of Mr. Stanley his journal of exploration, sealed to be delivered to his daughter, when the commander of the search expedition of the Herald should arrive in England. Number 3, upon Mr. Stanley's arrival in England, this journal was promptly forwarded to Miss Livingston. Her acknowledgment was published in many English and American journals. It was as follows. 4. As follows. Dear Sir, I write to say that I received last Saturday my father's letters and a diary which entrusted to you by him. I wish also to express to you my heartfelt gratitude for going in search of my father and aiding him so nobly in bringing a long looked-for letter safely. Believe me, yours truly, Agnes Livingston. Number 4, Dr. Livingston's letter that thanks to James Gordon, Bennett Esquire, Jr., the handwriting of which was published in similarity in the Herald and fully substantiated by Mr. John Livingston of Canada, brother of the explorer and more familiar with him and his handwriting than any living man. Number 5, the letter of John Livingston to Mr. Blake, American consul at Hamilton, Ontario in Canada, which was accompanied by a letter from Dr. Livingston, providing handwriting and forwarded to the Herald through the Department of State at Washington. This letter is as follows. F. N. Blake, Esquire, United States Consul, Hamilton, Ontario. Dear Sir, would you kindly oblige me by conveying in your official capacity to Mr. Bennett, proprietor of the New York Herald, and also to Mr. Stanley, the leader of the Herald Livingston search expedition, my warmest congratulations on the successful issue of that expedition. Having noticed a number of articles in the public press reflecting doubts on the veracity of Mr. Stanley and the Herald, I am glad to be able to say that I place my implicit confidence in the statements of Mr. Stanley and the Herald. I can assure you that Dr. Livingston holds the American government and people in the highest estimation, principally on account of the late abolition of slavery in the United States, and I trust this persistent effort to check the nefarious traffic of slaves in Africa will be crowned with success. I am yours respectfully, John Livingston. Number 6, the Royal Geographical Society of London, fully persuaded of the authenticity of Mr. Stanley's reports, tendered him a formal reception at Bridgeton. The meeting occurred and caused a great deal of comment. Number 7, the Sovereign of England has herself, on more than one occasion, tendered special honors to Mr. Stanley on account of his success in finding Dr. Livingston. Evidence like this is not to be shaken by the asseverations of penny-a-liners. It must be regarded by the candid and absolutely conclusive. Such, it is believed, would be the result of had Mr. Stanley been a British subject instead of an American citizen. As the fact is, the case for the Herald expedition is almost immeasurably stronger. It was a matter of profound chagrin to most of the English people that the American enterprise should be successful in the search for one of the most illustrious of Englishmen, while English expeditions should have failed. Under such circumstances, Mr. Stanley's proofs had to be absolutely unassailable, and his credentials unanswerably satisfactory, or they would not have been received at all. Both Majesty and Ministry would have given the commander of the American enterprise the coldest possible shoulder. Instead, they crowned him with laurels. and the only conclusion with reasonable minds must be held that the Herald expedition was a splendid success, and further doubt of it can only be a stupid and cruel skepticism. There's a long footnote. I believe these are correspondence or maybe news bulletins. I'm not going to get into them. It is not needed. It is not believed that anything further is needed to convince the public of what most of the intelligent public has already convinced. But it may do well to place a record of the statements of a number of prominent journals, and then it goes on to quote those journals, at least in part. And then the Foreign Office, August 1, 1872. Sir, I am directed by Earl Granville to acknowledge the receipt of a package containing letters and dispatches from Dr. Livingston, which you were good enough to deliver to Her Majesty, Ambassador at Paris for transmission. Her Majesty's Ambassador at Paris for transmission to this department, and I am to convey to you His Lordship thanks for taking charge of these interesting documents. I am your most obedient and humble servant, Enfield. Henry M. Stanley. And there's a few more of those. Little drawing of an Indian rhino. Don't know why it's an Indian rhino, of all rhinos, but